This is Miss Lizzie, and I want to welcome you to the Queen Lizzie podcast. Together, we will go through the history of Rosewood, Florida, and watch as the once prosperous town rises out of the bloodshed, fire, and ash to reveal the people, the memory, and the legacy of Rosewood. Watch every Thursday on Facebook and YouTube, or listen to our story on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Hello, everybody. I am Lizzie Robinson Jenkins, representing not only the Rosewood Foundation, but the personal testimonies and history of cherished friends and family. You are now watching the Queen Lizzie podcast. Today, we are talking with Vincent Hampton. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you, but I want you all to know that this is episode 117 today, and we're brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union, where Jerry Benton is officer-in-chief. Also, Coach Steve Spurrier is a vital sponsor of this podcast, of my podcast. And he is history oriented. He loves history, especially when it is told correctly and in order. And I try to keep it that way. It was a very ugly history, but
Right.
my goal is to keep it as positive as possible and not allow it to disappear. So I thank Steve Spurrier for playing like a vice supporter or a supporter to the foundation. Thank you, Steve. And by the way, we have a brunch here on the weekends from 11 till 3 each weekend. If you all need brunch or breakfast, please stop by here. The best food in town.
It's delicious.
It is delicious. Yes, it is. And I live in Archer, but as often as I can, I am here for breakfast. Sometimes I come after church because on Sundays we get out of church early. And if I don't want to cook, I come by here. I stop by here and have breakfast. And I know everybody knows Jeffrey Meldon, the attorney Jeffrey Meldon Law. Meldon Law, in fact, sponsors this room. Am I right, Zach? Isn't
yes,
he?
Yeah, the Meldon Law podcast room.
Yeah,
Right.
we are in today the Meldon Law podcast room. He is a great supporter. Plus, on the weekends, each week, he does an athlete of the week. And he's very involved with the University of Florida for 70 years, the University of Florida Sports Enterprise. And he has been doing this for 70 years. And Freddie Weeby, I can't say enough about Freddie. Freddie was the owner, and many people don't know this, he was the owner of Domino Pizza here many years ago. And he surrounds himself with knowledge and history. He loves Rosewood history. In fact, he named my show the Queen Lizzie podcast. And I love it. And he loves it too. He keeps me educated. He sends our guests my way because I think he sent you or he put us in touch.
He did,
Yes,
yes.
and we're waiting today to hear what you are going to say, because I like what he says. He has a very pleasant attitude, and his quote about attitude says, "Life is an attitude. The better your attitude, the better your life." So we're going to talk about your life today, your attitude, not really. But anyway, I just want to hear from you. And again, welcome to the Queen Lizzie podcast. We're honored to have you as our guest.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you
so
are,
much.
again,
Yeah, Vincent Hampton.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And what brings you here, Winston? I'm sorry, Vincent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm right now, there's a lot of things, a lot of movement I see, especially in the Black community here. And, I've kind of been working on a blog recently, kind of named Uncomfortable Truth. And so, the purpose of that is to just kind of begin those conversations that are a little bit uncomfortable for people.
Yes.
A lot of people don't like talking about race, but, a lot of the work I'm doing in affordable housing and education, is paired with research of, what has happened in these communities and how do we fix it. And, the more research I do, the deeper I go into it, the more I see how much has not been fixed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know someone that lives in Archer, and they need what you're talking about.
Right.
They need justice for houses, or they need work
Right.
with their homes. And after, or I don't know if we can talk about here, I want to know the steps or the procedures. Where do I go from here to help them? Because they are looking to me, and they have asked me on more than one occasion, where do I go to get help living out in Archer? We don't have an advocate, a
Right.
direct advocate. Although they put information out there on the internet, wherein we can go in and apply.
Right.
But having you here today, and I'm going to pick your brain to see where we go from here
Right.
to help people that's having housing problems or housing repair.
Right.
Where do we go and
Yeah.
start?
So I've recently connected with Gainesville for All. I don't know if you know James Lawrence over there. They've done, so they have an early learning facility. They've done really great work with the city, RTS buses, getting passes for residents that can't afford them, things like that. But we've started the conversation. We're actually building an advocacy website where you can actually, submit, discrimination claims or housing issues. And we have a team of volunteers that are real estate professionals that
Perfect.
can connect you with the correct resources. I've a good friend of mine, Adam Maxwell, is.
I know Adam
Yeah.
very well.
Yep. So we're friends. We both went to PK Young together.
Okay.
So he's the lead investigator for the city of Gainesville
Okay.
when it comes to discrimination. And so we've had, multiple conversations about, just collaborating to bring more awareness to what he does, and that's, a resource available, because a lot of people don't really know that.
Exactly, because I don't know it, and you just said the city of Gainesville. Good. We need something in the county.
Right.
And if you were going to put together a website or a page that we can go to, read, apply, we'll be more than happy to do that. And I'm glad you all are going to make sure this happens. But Adam Maxwell, I know him. And I know he's a hard worker, and I know if the two of you are working together, you're going to make it happen.
Yes, ma'am.
And we need it to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that's the nice thing, because I've been asked, I have, I don't know if you know Corey Harris, but just this wanting to connect with the city, people suggesting I try to work for the city, but I've found that working in the nonprofit sector and just being a independent contractor is much more effective than kind of going into the belly of the beast per se.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
know Corey Harris very well. Corey
Yeah.
Harris is from Archer, too.
Right.
I'm from
I think
Archer, so it's
yeah,
Corey.
We've
Corey.
talked about that.
And I don't know if I taught him, but he's out there. He's doing it. He's making things happen.
Yeah.
And his father was the first, forgotten what I was starting to say. He was the founding director of the Community Action Agency
Wow. Yeah.
years back. He was a hard worker. And let me tell you something that I'm telling his business, but his business is so empowering.
Right.
Oscar Harris, when I was teaching in Archer, Corey's father was the custodian there. He knew he needed to become an educator.
Mhm.
He went to college, he became an educator, And I remember him
Oh, yeah.
as making progress and wanting to make change in Alachua County. So Corey
He's
is
doing it.
all right. Corey is following in the footprints of his dad. His dad was a hard worker, and he's no longer with us, but we miss him very much. So you do have good people on your team.
Yeah,
We appreciate
absolutely. And just, I've been in real estate a little bit over 12 years now.
it. Okay.
Just as a realtor and, property manager. So, connecting with them really kind of gave me clarity, and it saved me a lot of time because it's like I had a lot of ideas, and I think that's something our community could use more of is collaboration, instead of everyone
Exactly.
being siloed trying to, complete projects. It's like if we really can collaborate, we could save so much time and effort because a lot of us have already done great work,
Exactly.
you included. So it's like, it's really amazing just connecting with people that have that same passion for community and justice, to just save time. And
Takes all of us working together.
absolutely.
And it's not about us, okay? It's about the children, it's about our community,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
And with the talent we have, working together can only make us stronger and better.
Yeah.
And we are here for each other,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And I'm honored to have you on my show
Oh.
today. And Rosewood, you know that, but if you don't, Rosewood is my baby, my pet, okay? And my mom was my Rosewood teacher because her sister was the Rosewood teacher. And I have to say this on each episode because someone last week may not have heard what I'm going to tell you today,
Right.
or vice versa, because as I said, this is number 117. So my aunt, her sister was the school teacher. However, her sister lived in Archer and married a young man out of Rosewood. So of course, when she married, she moved to Rosewood, and there was an opening there. So she became the Rosewood teacher for 7 years, I believe, from 1915 to 1923. And she survived the massacre. But her experience was awful. It was really not a happy situation. And my mother said, you've got to keep this history alive for the next generation. So, and I tell people, unless we as adults remember, our children will not understand. Mother said to me, research, authenticate, document, and tell Rosewood history, never attacking anyone. So that's what I try to do. Yes, indeed. And I'm glad you're interested.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because it's going to take the future generation to carry this history on. Your children, grandchildren, and it's not black or white. It's not Republican, Democrat, or Independent. It's blue, green, whatever color. It's everybody, and no one on our team is considered an immigrant.
Right.
We are people,
Right.
okay? And it's going to take people working together to maintain our democracy
Yeah.
and protect our history,
Yes, ma'am.
because history is who we are, okay? And hopefully it will take us forward. Not hopefully, it will take us.
It will.
Yes, working together, it will take us to the next generation. Anyone else work with you that I may know?
I mean,
You're more than sure.
there's a long list. And,
Okay.
Freddie being one of them.
Yes,
we've
yes.
done fundraisers in the past. I'm on the board of Peak Literacy, which is a wonderful literacy program here.
Okay.
About 4 to 5 years old, I believe.
Okay.
My time's off a little bit sometimes,
Oh,
but I
that's
believe
okay.
it's about 5 years old. Doing wonderful work in the community with around literacy and stuff like that. And but Freddie helped out with a fundraiser back in 2019.
Okay.
called the Tailgate for Kids. So we have that kind of, I think he mentioned that. It's in Touchdown Terrace, and but the program is just wonderful because it's one of the most impactful programs I've seen, because basically what it does is connects each child with a mentor.
Okay.
And they go through, literacy training, but they meet every day for 15 minutes. They work on the Great Leaps program, but most importantly, they connect and they care. And, every time I walk out my door, I see a lot of generational trauma that our community is dealing with.
Yes.
And, so many people that are still in survival mode. So a lot of times that connection with their kids, or having the time or bandwidth to sit down and work with your child, like I struggle with it, as a single dad, and I know my mom did,
Yes.
raising 5 of us by herself. So it's wonderful being able to give back and really help in a sustainable way, because that's kind of my big thing is, is what I'm doing sustainable, or is it just kind of fixing a symptom? So.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
5 children,
Yes, ma'am.
single-handed.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
What an awesome mother.
Yes.
Yes.
She's got quite the story. So she was
Really?
actually so my dad's half black, half Japanese, and my mom's white. So
Okay.
when my parents started dating, my mom was actually disowned by her family because my dad was black and or just not white.
Okay.
And so and just seeing how strong she was in her morals, regardless of the environment she was brought up with, has and will always be such an inspiration to me. Because it wasn't easy. I can't imagine being 18, 19, and basically telling your mom and your family that they're wrong in such a strong way, to where they literally disowned you, and you said, you know what, I'm okay with that, because I know what I'm doing is right.
Exactly. And mom and dad and whomever, grandma, need to know that children don't pick their parents. Okay.
Absolutely.
And your mother was able to get a hold of that and say, hey, these are my kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know she's proud of you, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. She lives here in
She
Gainesville?
is, yeah.
Okay.
She's been a teacher for over 30 years.
I'd like to meet her
Absolutely.
and maybe bring her on my
Yes.
show and let her tell her story. What's her name? Do I know?
Kim Hampton.
Kim Hampton.
She's
Yep.
worked at, she's always been passionate about lower socioeconomic schools, so she's taught at Rawlings,
Yes.
Anchor Center, Prairie View. I'm sure I'm
Okay.
missing
I taught
a
at
couple.
Rollins
Okay,
years ago when it was very new,
okay.
right? But
She's
back-
at Glen Springs now.
I
but-
taught at Glen Springs also.
Okay.
Yeah, she's over there with Adusu, the principal.
That sounds, yep.
Yep. Okay. I called her. Can't remember her name. Stella. Stella Adrusa. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
This is about time for our first half. We are going to head to a quick break, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
I am Black History.
I am Rosewood Black History.
I am Florida
and
and
America's Black History, and you are too.
January 1st, 1923, the KKK insurrectionists attacked Rosewood, killing 5, burning it down.
Because a white woman lied and cried, a black man assaulted me. Rosewood redevelopment is on its way.
Want to help? Visit rosewoodflorida.com.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, 2 things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Welcome back to Queen Lizzie Podcast, brought to you weekly from the Steve Spurrier Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We are here with Vincent Hampton. The Queen Lizzie Podcast is brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union, live from the Meldon Law Gator Studios at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Okay, we are back. And we are going to talk about a young man that I know, that you don't know I know him, and he has connections in Archer. Josiah T. Walls. Josiah T. Walls was the first, you already know this, was the first black congressman in the state of Florida. And many, many years ago, he worked with my great-grandfathers, great-uncles, and great-cousins because he lived in Archer. He taught school in Archer, and he taught school to some of the Rosewood descendants before they were Rosewood descendants.
Right.
So he has roots in Archer. I think it was in January. In January, I did a program honoring him in Archer. And it was really nice because many people didn't know that I knew him. I don't know him, I know of him and his contributions to history and to Archer and to Alachua County because he owned like 1,300 acres of property in Alachua County. Don't know where, and he had connections at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. In fact, in later years, he moved there. And I'm thinking he started a winery, maybe not a winery, a vineyard, raising what we called back then bullets, what's called today muscadine. Okay, so Josiah T. Walls is like part of my family.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, small world.
It is.
And we keep talking, we'll find out more information.
Yeah. I just did a post about him. I don't know if you saw that, but
On
last week on my blog on
yeah,
my Facebook.
yes, that's why I brought it up.
Gotcha,
Yes, I saw that,
Yeah.
and I thought, and then when I saw that, I said, he knows Josiah T. Walls, and I said, I made up my mind then that I was going to ask you questions about him. He was a genius.
Yeah.
Yep, self-taught, and by the way, when he taught in Archer, he only taught the males to read. He didn't teach the females to read. He taught the males to read, and then the males, once they learned to read, they taught the women how to read. Don't ask why. I didn't ask my mom, but I'm assuming he was. I don't know, so I'm not going to assume.
Yeah.
But the most important
It kind of
thing-
reminds me of like Christianity a little bit. I've studied in church here at a few churches, and there seems to be sometimes a similar, I don't know if I want to call it a strategy, but mindset
Yes.
of men learn in church and then go home and teach the women. And I think people interpret that differently, and some people have run with it. But I think in this day and age,
Okay.
it's not okay.
Okay, but he did that,
Yeah.
and like I said, I appreciate that, and and my life has been for the last 42 years dedicated to telling Rosewood history correctly, and let people know that Rosewood does not belong to black people. It was integrated back then. Had it not been for the whites in 1923 when the massacre happened, many more blacks would have been killed, and the town would have been annihilated because Cedar Key, Rosewood / Cedar Key is a peninsula, and Cedar Key is the place, where the enslaved blacks were brought from the southern towns, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, by boat,
Right.
down the Gulf of Mexico. And that's where they lived, in Cedar Key, for years. And when the tsunami, people don't really know that a tsunami occurred in Cedar Key, 1897-ish, may not be the right date, but close to, then many of the people were forced over into Sumner. And at the time, there was no Sumner, so they named it Sumner, and then Rosewood. And on the census, don't remember the census right now, but anyway, I discovered my ancestors were there.
Wow.
And I know that they had lived in Cedar Key because I found my great-great-grandfather on the census back in 1848.
Wow.
He was age 1, no parents, okay, and that was kind of strange. And my mom had told me, that's my paternal side, my mom had told me, well, your dad's parents, ancestors are from Cedar Key. So I came home and told her I found Grandpa Henry McIntyre. And just like she said, that's where he was. But in spite of all of that, the history has been really difficult to get out there.
Yeah.
Yes, it has. And together we're going to work really hard to make things happen.
Right.
Okay, grant writing, that's what I'm working on right now. I have a young man that's going to call me, and in fact, before he writes his grants, he wants to come to Archer and visit the property, so that he can go back and write the grant. I'm bringing him on my show next week, after he visits the property in Archer where we're going to build the museum. And you asked me if I knew earlier, if I knew Pigan Henderhan. Yes, Pigan was the ex-mayor, am I right? Wasn't she a former mayor? To write a grant, okay, for me, for Rosewood. And she was able to get $480,000
Wow.
approved, okay, through the trust,
Wow.
through the land trust. And what we did with that money, we invested it in a company, and they have surveyed the property. We have 29 acres in Archer, where the school teacher, my aunt and mom, grandparents grew up, and we are going to build a Rosewood Museum there on that property. And also with that funding, we were able to they were able to do the rendering, so we have pictures. And if anybody wants to see the pictures, go to my foundation, the Real Rosewood Foundation, and you can see the pictures, the renderings of the museum. While you're there, donate. Click on donate and donate to the Rosewood Museum, or leave money for the scholarship. We give a scholarship, 5 scholarships a year, to graduating seniors. So that is something you can do. And as I said, Mom wanted to make sure people know that the whites played a very important part in the history, okay? There were unsung heroes that helped the sheriff late at night put the elderly black men and women on the train once it came from Cedar Key to Rosewood, and the children. However, many of them left walking in the woods because they were so afraid of being killed. So the one most important verse to me in the song my mother wrote was, the Cedar Key train conductors were told to pick up in Rosewood. Standing by the tracks with a lantern, its young school teacher stood, waiting in desperation to carry out the sheriff's plans, rounding up the hidden survivors to board the midnight train. Remember, I said they stopped in Rosewood and help the elderly onto the train. So my aunt was standing at the Rosewood station, or it wasn't a station, it was a whistle stop, the Rosewood whistle stop, and she was standing there with a lantern, and that let the inform the, what do they call my heroes? The heroes, the Cedar Key heroes that got on board that boarded in Cedar Key. When they saw the lantern, they knew to exit, and the people were hiding in the woods, and they had informed John Wright and his wife, the store merchant, had informed the people when the train stopped. You see the light. This is where you are supposed to
Safe
go.
space. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And so it's a long story, but
It needs to be told.
it needs to be told.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate people like you wanting to hear it and wanting to come on board and be a part of
Absolutely.
this
Yes, ma'am.
history. Would you like the last word?
I think just it's so important for a lot of people to understand that while it is history, there's a lot of things that we're dealing with today that, once you understand the history, you understand today much better. And just I
Exactly.
think, using that history to, again, very much like that lantern, like light the way for a better
Yes.
future.
Oh, I like
So
that.
it's wonderful, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
She was, for the remainder of her life, she was a mess. When I say she was a mess, she was stressed. She never recuperated from the trauma she experienced, okay?
Yep.
Yes, she did. But I tell the story so that I can remember, and hopefully other people, because if we don't talk about it, it is bound to repeat.
Yep.
So we have to keep that history alive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I always say for the next generation, it's the children that need to know it. And we're not going to stop talking about history.
Yeah, they're the best ones to talk. I've had some of the most wonderful conversations with my children where you just kind of talk about, hey, here's what happened, and they just have the most pure responses sometimes of just, and we were having a conversation yesterday about, I've been working with the Hale Plantation and working to get that development renamed because I feel like, again, they're telling some history, but it's not correct. It's not accurate. It's not highlighting the brutality. It's it's very watered down for people's comfort.
I am so glad you said that. It is so true. Water. It
Yeah.
is so true.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the homestead, I mean, they're rebuilding a kitchen, that the slave workers worked in, and instead of highlighting the enslaved and naming it after one of them, which there's many known and successful descendants, they're naming it after their nonprofit director, which she's doing good work, but it's like given the opportunity to highlight and preserve that type of history, and it's just very apparent she still works for the Hale Trust.
Exactly. And it's not about her.
Exactly.
And I tell her this because she has worked with other nonprofits, and she takes credit for all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not about her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
And
connected them with Whitney Plantation in Louisiana. I don't know if you're familiar with Whitney
No,
Plantation.
I'm not.
It's a former plantation, but it fully encapsulates and highlights the experience of the slaves. So you're able to go there and actually learn
Okay.
about the people that,
Good move.
yeah.
Wonderful. I like that. I like that you're doing that. It
Yeah.
needs to be done. It's not about her.
Yeah,
Okay, she's
I
not a slave, never have been, never will be.
Yeah.
So why do you want to be the focus
Right.
of slavery?
Especially in a building that the slaves worked,
Exactly. Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
We'll see how they respond.
Okay. All right. And we're going to have to talk more. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I am continuously humbled, honored, and blessed to meet people daily and invite them to join in peace building, healing, and reconciliation through learning about the history of Rosewood. That will wrap up today's episode. I am Queen Lizzie. Until next time, goodbye.